I want to welcome to the program somebody we've been very excited to have on. I feel like this is a long time coming. We've been a long time admirer. This is the former Secretary of Homeland Security. We're talking to Chad Wolf today. Welcome to the program.
Well, it's just great to be here. Big time fan. Listen to the show a lot. I'm excited to jump into it.
Listen, I was so gratified to hear you're actually a listener of the Variety program.
Right. So I was talking to you earlier. Wasn't able to listen during the Trump administration. We were a little busy, but found it shortly thereafter. And I think I binged maybe somewhere between 35 and 40 episodes during on a couple of road trips. Subjected my family to it.
So good.
Who, the kids were like, "What? I don't understand." But the wife loved it, and I've been a fan ever since.
I mean, that's enough for mind control. 35 or 40 episodes of the Variety program.
I think by then we've gotten the message in.
Yeah, I think we make it in pretty thick at that point. Listen, you did incredible work in the administration on a whole bunch of thorny issues. Why don't we start with immigration? Because I know that's the one that continues to make tons of headlines now. Basically because the Biden administration took zero of your advice and decided to reverse all the things that were working and now find themselves in a hell of a problem. It's not surprising to you, I bet.
It's not surprising at all. And most people do start in immigration. And I usually back it up and say this is it's part what was great serving under President Trump and also frustrating all at the same time. He would get a hold of an issue like immigration, which has really plagued the country for decades, over different administrations, right? I served under Bush, wasn't in the immigration space, but even President Bush and President Obama made small tweaks and changes around the edges. But they didn't want to really tackle the hard and difficult issue because it's
hard and difficult.
It's hard and difficult, right? People say Social Security is the third rail of politics. This may be like 3.5 or 4, right?
Right.
Where people feel very passionately on either side, and you're going to upset the apple cart here a little bit. Yeah. And most politicians will say, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I'm really not going to wade into that. President Trump said, we're going all in.
Yeah.
We're going to go all in because it's broken. And as a businessman, he wanted to fix something that was broken. And so we started thinking about and doing things that others had never done before. Mm-hmm. And they would look at you and go, how could you do that? And our answer back to him was, how could you not do that? How could you not want to fix something? I didn't get into public service or leave the private sector and subject 4 years of my life to, which was very difficult, just to make some improvements around the edges. We wanted to do something consequential at the end of the day. And so we weren't going to take no for an answer.
Right.
When Congress in 2017 and 18 said, well, this is too difficult, we can't pass anything, sorry. We said, okay, well, that really sucks. It's kind of your job to do this. But, if you can't do your job, then we're going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to look at the authorities we have, and we're going to actually do something that helps the American people.
Yeah.
And we'll take flack for it. That's fine. That's our job. We've got thick skin. But we're not going to sit around and admire the problem and say, really, I wish I could fix that.
And to me, I think that's one of the most ironic things about the Trump administration, their approach to immigration, where you had the media demonizing them as saying, oh, how could you people be doing this, when it is actually incredibly humane. Yes. To maintain a border and have a safe border, unlike now where basically you've sent the message out to coyotes, human traffickers, that it's a free-for-all. And this is a message that you're hearing from illegal aliens at the border themselves, that under Trump, the message was, don't even try it. Now, it's just get a coyote and get smuggled over. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and find yourself in a terrible position. You guys thought outside the box too. Remain in Mexico. This stuff that you guys came up with solved the problem.
And we were called all sorts of names, right? Yeah. You can imagine, because people, and certainly the left, wanted to paint us that if you didn't let everyone into the country, regardless of whether they had a valid asylum claim or not, if you didn't let them into the country, somehow you were inhumane, somehow you didn't care about them, somehow you weren't passionate about them. And that's just wrong.
Yeah.
What is inhumane, and I'll say it to this day, is the current administration, where they are selling lies to individuals to put your hands in the hands of coyotes, pay that $5,000 to $12,000, your life savings in many instances, only to get smuggled, to be raped, to be killed, knowing that you will not qualify for asylum, knowing that you will need to be removed from the country at some future date. And they know this. They have the same stats and statistics that I have. They know this. And yet they put their blinders on and they say, well, I think it's going to benefit me at the end of the day. to bring these individuals into the country. And look, that's just what we're going to do. And, held it with everything else, to American communities, to Border Patrol agents, to everything that's going on in this pitiful system that we have now.
Totally. So look, I got to imagine there is a difference between, getting the news consumption of what we see in terms of border trouble and actually being in charge and the briefings that you get. Yeah. I mean, how scary of a situation is this?
It's bad. It's not good. I think the left would want you to think about the border as it's a bunch of families and children coming across that border, and they're here to seek a better life. And in many instances, that is true, but certainly not in all instances.
Yeah.
What you do have along that border are some very, very bad individuals that are exploiting the system, that are getting across that border every single day to do very bad things here in the United States. It could range from anything from just, human trafficking and child exploitation, which is bad enough, to really, really bad terrorist, planning and plotting and doing some very, very bad things. And you see it every single day coming across that border. When you have upwards of 7,000 to 8,000 individuals being apprehended along that border, and probably another 2,000 that get away that we never apprehend. Right? So think about that. So you have 2,000 folks a day that Border Patrol never sees, never apprehends, but we know they're there because we have radar feeds, we have camera feeds. We see them come across, we just don't have the assets. Mm-hmm. These are 2,000 individuals that are able to pay the cartels more money to smuggle them across in places that they know Border Patrol is not.
Yeah.
So why are they paying them more money? Well, they don't want to be apprehended. They don't want to be caught. They don't want to have an interview with a law enforcement
agency. And they have the
agency.
resources to do it, unlike everybody else
Right.
who actually may be trying to seek a better life, right?
That's exactly right.
These people, if you have assets, that's likely not your motive.
It's certainly not your motive.
Right.
And I think it's important to remember these cartels are very, very sophisticated. I was just down on the border, and the Border Patrol agents were saying they see about 100 incursions a day from drones from the cartels.
No kidding.
So they're not only dropping drugs and contraband, but it's also surveillance.
Huh.
So you no longer need a coyote sitting on a kind of a hilltop with a pair of binoculars any longer.
Yeah, these guys are actually
unreal.
Yeah. So it's a sophisticated organization. And I often talk about, at least during the 4 years, this is a game of whack-a-mole in some cases, because every time you put up a new measure, a new procedure, or a new policy in place, the cartels, it'll stymie them, but then they'll figure it out and they'll pop up somewhere else doing something else different. So it's constant that, the game at the fair where it's the whack-a-mole. The one thing the cartels want is predictability. And the one thing the Biden administration is giving them is predictability, which is we are not doing a single thing. Wow. Not one single thing to deter your operations, to disrupt your operations, to make you move to different parts of the border. Not one single thing. It's been the same on that border since day one of this administration as it is today.
Yeah. Well, and what's I find so amazing now, you look at the Summit of Americas and Mexico refusing to participate with Biden. I was like, who'd have guessed that the guy who campaigned on having Mexico pay for his wall would have a more productive relationship than this administration would? But it's true, demonstrably.
100%. So you have the vice president talking about the root causes of migration, I guess she's still on that. The one country that can actually stop this flow is Mexico. And what do they decide to do? Not to come to the summit.
It's amazing.
But yet you have Biden officials at the summit talking about irregular migration. Well, that's fine, but your one partner in this fight is not there.
You're talking to the bunch of people who have nothing to do with it.
Absolutely. Because they have no relationship. They have no strategy. And if you're the president of Mexico and you have the United States, and in press reporting I'm hearing, you have the United States leaning on them to do more and more, you're looking north and you're saying, what in the hell? Why aren't you doing your job?
Right.
Why aren't you enforcing, immigration law on your border, which would make it easier for me to enforce it in Mexico? Instead, you have this open border policy, which is just incentivizing and attracting these individuals through Mexico. So yes, now my job becomes 10 times harder because of what you're doing in the United States.
It's incredible.
And so this is this crazy logic that they have that says, I should keep my borders open, but let me lean on Mexico and Central America to close yours. I don't understand. It's a broken strategy.
Well, do they? I mean, I don't even think they care, right? I mean, it seems like the Biden administration. I mean, first of all, when you make Kamala Harris your czar, and she goes like 30 miles away from the border and says mission accomplished, that told me right away what they thought about this problem. But it seems to me like they just rather ignore it, right? I mean, have you seen anything that would give you the impression that they're not anything but unserious about this?
No, that's exactly right. I think that they want it to go away.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of questions, and people get a lot of frustrated, and they say, "Well, only one network is covering this. Why is it that we only see this on Fox?" And I kind of go back to what I told some of the folks at DHS when I thought we were doing a good job at DHS, and some of the other networks weren't covering what we were doing. I said, "This is how you know you're winning. When the other networks, NBC, CB, you know them well as I do, when they don't cover the issue, it's because they can't defend it.
Yeah.
They've got nothing to say about it. They can't roll out someone that says, yeah, this is the right thing to do, because they know that the viewers watching are like, no, this is really bad." And so I think in some respects they've given up. They don't know what to say about the administration, so they just refuse to cover it, which I think does a disservice to the American people.
Oh, it's just a sad indictment.
So you said you'd gone down and visited with law enforcement individuals along the border. How has morale changed from the Trump administration to currently? Where this administration demonized them, accused them wrongly of whipping and migrants from horseback.
It's as bad as you can get. It's in the dump tank. I'm trying to think of other phrases to use. We have retention problems. You have hiring problems. You have folks that are taking early retirement because they're saying, I've had enough. When you staring this issue 15 months or more now in the face every single day, you live in these communities as a Border Patrol agent, you go to work every day, you bring that work home with you every day, and you're saying, please, someone find me a solution. And every day you keep hearing from political leadership in D.C. is, borders closed, right? Secretary said this, borders closed, the border's secure, and we have operational control over the border. All three of those are lies. All three of those are not anywhere close to reality. And so if you're a line agent and you're saying, what's going on? So we have the highest suicide rate among Border Patrol right now than we've ever had.
Horrific.
We have the most attacks on Border Patrol from cartel members and others because they know that this administration is not serious about border security. We had the least amount of attacks on Border Patrol agents during the Trump administration because they knew better.
Yeah.
They knew that that wasn't gonna fly.
Yeah, well, they were empowered.
Right.
Right.
And so I think it's bad all around. We need good people to stay there because name is appropriate. The cavalry is coming. And so we need good people to stay there. You don't want everyone to leave the Border Patrol. I've heard people say, well, they should just all walk out. Well, that's a good, maybe symbolic move, but it's not good for the American people at the end of the day. You need competent people down there doing their job, but they need leadership and will from their political leadership, and they get none. They have none. And I often talk about it. If you're a Border Patrol agent, you have a tool belt, metaphorically speaking. Well, they actually have a tool belt.
Yeah.
And you have a bunch of tools to do your job every day. And slowly but surely, every one of those tools has been taken out of your tool belt and thrown in the trash can. So you wanted an effective border wall system? Well, we threw that away on day one. You wanted to remain in Mexico or MPP? That's in the trash. You wanted the asylum cooperative agreements, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador? That's in the trash. And the list goes on and on and on and on. And the only thing that you have left in your tool belt is Title 42. It's the only thing you have for that border, as bad as it is now, would be blown wide open.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you have left. And you hear your political leadership saying, I'd like to get rid of Title 42. And so as a Border Patrol agent, you're like, what in God's green earth are you guys looking at? What are the data sets that you're looking at that says this is a good idea?
Oh.
So it's bad. It's I'm not trying to sugarcoat it any, but it's
it just sounds awful.
Yeah. And so when we talk about a caravan arriving, because that's in the news, right?
Yeah.
15,000 person caravan, and people are like, oh my God, that's terrible. That's every 2 days. Every 2 days we see a 15,000 person caravan at our border. It's not just one time. It's not a one time where you see images of 15,000. Every 2 days, that's how many people are coming across that border.
That's wild. I mean, tell me this. I imagine you got back into public service in the Trump administration for a whole wide variety of issues. Were you prepared for that? I mean, was that something that immediately when you start being briefed on that kind of offensive at the southern border, I mean, did you know this in coming in, or was this like, holy cats, we got to think outside the box here?
Well, it's funny because I came in really not knowing a lot about immigration. Was not my expertise. I was more transportation security and did other parts of Homeland Security. And so, as we like to say at DHS, immigration is just one of many, many missions of the department. And for a lot of my career, I was focused on other missions. But for a variety of different reasons, serving as chief of staff of the department, you get to learn other missions. And so slowly but surely, you start listening to all the immigration attorneys speak, and you're just like, wow, this is really messed up. There's so many loopholes here. Why can't you hold a family longer than 20 days? Well, why would you hold them one day if you can't hold them past 20? Why would you put them in housing that's going to cost the American taxpayer millions of dollars?
Right.
Well, that's by design, by the left. They have designed the system in a certain way that allows all these individuals in there. And so the more I started to learn about it, the more angry I got. Say, we've got to do something about this. This is about, every community in America, right? We say every community is now a border community because what comes across that border no longer stays along that border. Opioids, fentanyl, human trafficking, everything that you see today is infecting every community along that border. Or along in the country. And so this is about, I've got two boys. This is about public education system, public health systems, their public safety infrastructure, and having this number of illegal individuals coming in every single month. Last month, 234,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's the population of Richmond, Virginia. Every single month.
That's really wild.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a perspective I hadn't heard. So let me ask you this. You mentioned your background in transportation security and other. How did you get into this line of work to begin with? I mean, were you inherently political growing up? Were you inherently policy oriented? How do you get into all of this to where all of a sudden you're running the Department of Homeland Security?
I like to say I stumbled upward into this.
As we all do.
As we all do, right? I don't know that my story was much different than many others. Lived in Texas, graduated Southern Methodist University, came up, started working on the Hill, Phil Graham, and then Chuck Hagel, which was interesting. And then I was on the Hill on 9/11, and that had a impact on me. And said, okay, I want to do something. Got the chance to go over to the Transportation Security Administration, which was created right after 9/11. Was in the Department of Transportation until DHS was created in 2003, and then moved over into the department in 2003. This is all under President Bush. And so got exposed to a wide variety of different missions inside the department and really liked it. Stepped out during President Obama.
Obviously.
So spent 11 years in the private sector here in D.C. And then I got a call from a couple of different individuals shortly after the election and they said, hey, are you interested in going back into the administration, particularly at the department? We need good people that know the department. I said, no, thanks. Private sector's good. I've got two small, they weren't small at that point, but they were,
kids.
Formative years.
Yeah. Where
you want to spend. And I was, the T-ball coach and I was, I was at that point in my life.
Right.
And then, a couple calls later, 3 calls later, it was okay. I'll take a 30-day hiatus from my job and I'll go in and help you guys set up the department. Well, that led to another position. And so I started off as the chief of staff at TSA because I knew transportation security. And about 3 months in, they're like, okay, we think your skill set can be better used at the headquarters. So let's bring you up. And then about 30 days after I got there, John Kelly and Kirsten Nielsen at the time jettisoned to the White House to do jobs over there, and so I evidently became chief of staff to the department. So
you're like, this went really quickly.
Yeah, I was like, well, this is interesting. My wife's like, you don't know half of the department. Fake it. I'll fake it.
I will learn it.
Yeah, we'll figure this out as we go. So it was a wild, couple of years, and at the same time, so I wasn't on the campaign. I wasn't a Trump person on the campaign. I admired from afar and thought it was great when he won because it was going to be a shakeup and we needed something different. And so, adjusting to briefing individuals like Senator Graham and Hagel and other folks to President Trump, a little different.
Yeah,
a little different. Not gonna lie about that. But after you get past the shock and after you get past it's really different, it was also really refreshing.
He asked questions that nobody else asked.
And he just didn't give a shit about excuses.
Right.
I'd have people go in and talk about, oh, here's why we can't do that. I was like, guys, I'm gonna just tell you right now, probably don't do that. He doesn't care. and rightfully so.
Yeah.
He just is like, figure it out. Figure out a way to get it done.
Yeah.
And so he's challenging you in many respects because the easiest thing in government to do is say no. No, I can't do that. For here's 6 laws or here's 6 reasons why I can't do it. Yeah. Let's get creative. Okay, we may not be able to do it that way, but we may not be able to get you 100%, but we can get you 85%, and that's going to be better than 0 at the end of the day. So, I've I would come out of briefings and be like, okay, well, that's interesting. Let's figure out how to do that. Other people would come out of briefings and be like, oh my God, I can't believe what just happened in there. I was like, what, that we actually have a mission now? We can actually go do stuff. We've been empowered. I've got commander's intent from the president of the United States to go do a job. What more do you want?
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of your colleagues in the administration, is that there is an element of shock about what it is, like breaking of protocol in terms of the directive, but then ultimately you walk out and you're like, I think I got a blank slate to do whatever I want to get the job done here, right?
Yeah, yeah. You're just like, this is great. And you've got other people in that meeting who said, you walk out and you're like, did you hear the same thing? They're like, yeah. I'm like, fantastic.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
And so you get back into the department and people are like, oh, no, sir, you can't do that. I said, that's fine. Let's go across the street and tell the boss we can't do that.
You first.
Nah, we're not interested in that. Okay.
So one downside, though, of working with the Trump administration, working in the Trump administration, is for, I think, the first time, at least that I can recall, you saw Democrats radicalize in a way that you hadn't seen before, where they were calling on, was it Pelosi who said, confront people in the Trump administration wherever you see them.
Maxine Waters.
It was Maxine Waters
Yeah.
who said, if you see them, get in their face. And you had your home protested as well.
Yeah. So this happened in early 2020. We got involved, or I say the department got involved with some events going on in Portland at the time, where they were trying to burn down a courthouse in the city in Portland, if you remember that.
It's so wild that it was like a controversial thing.
Right.
I mean, we were literally watching a great American city burn to the ground on a nightly basis.
And it's so great when you contrast that to what you saw on January the 6th. If you back up to Portland, which was in 2020, when you had the seat of democracy in Portland under attack every single night, Molotov cocktails, IEDs that we discovered,
Good Lord.
being, and they got into the courthouse at one point and literally tried to burn it down. So you're trying to burn down the seat of democracy. Guess how many people said anything about that on the left?
Yeah, zero.
Mm-hmm.
Zero.
To the
Zero.
contrary, anybody who was trying to do something about it.
Oh, yeah.
had a
And so
problem.
when we stepped up and we said, well, my job, because part of DHS, we have something called the Federal Protective Service, which actually protects federal buildings, and they protected that courthouse. And so the Federal Protective Service, there was like 4 of them that were at that courthouse. They called one day and they said, we're being overwhelmed. I said, well, what does that mean? Describe what that means. They're like, well, we're getting beat up. Literally, I had a bat to my head last night. I said, well, that's not going to work.
I mean, it was like the Alamo.
Yeah.
The mobs that they had out there, I remember the images in the video. It was unbelievable.
We surged 130. This is after I had phone calls with the governor of Oregon, as well as the mayor, who those phone calls did not go well. When
we're good with it burning, thanks.
Yeah, I asked them to do their job. I said, can you secure the courthouse? You do have the state police. You do have the local Portland police. I said, you need to secure that courthouse. And they said, no. If we leave them alone, they'll go away.
Get out of here.
And I said, that's kind of what I said. I said, I'm sorry, are you serious?
It's a mostly peaceful courthouse burning.
Yeah. I said, well, I can't do that. That's, that may be your view, but my job, I've got statutory responsibilities as the acting DHS secretary. I'm not going to let the courthouse burn. Thanks. I'm going to send in 130 law enforcement officers. Oh, you can't do that. I said, sure you can. They were there the day after. And they lost their mind because they were actually doing their job.
And they did their job and protected the courthouse.
Of course they did.
It's unbelievable to me. I mean, the left's view of this is just absolute nonsense. Well, you can see it play out.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's basically the approach they've had in every American city.
Yeah. So it's crazy. So it's on the heels of that, then my house starts getting protested because people thought, you had Nancy Pelosi calling DHS law enforcement officers in Portland the Gestapo.
I remember that.
Stormtroopers.
Yeah.
All these descriptions that were just so over the top. I asked her to apologize. She never got around to it.
She impolitely declined.
She never got around to it. And so we'd have protests in front of my house, and it was, it was so funny because they would congregate about a quarter of a mile away, and then they would march in unison to my house. But the people, where they would congregate, they would drive up in their Volvos and get out of their Volvos and then come up.
And then lib march. It's not like a real march.
Yeah. And then they would come and, do their thing in front of the house. And It's fine. Look, I have a thick skin, but not only did they cross the line in front of my house, right? Because it's your house, and I don't think anyone should be subjected to that. But then they started talking about the kids.
Oh,
My kids.
man, are you serious?
Yeah, about his kids go to school here.
No.
And, oh yeah. I mean, this is like how out of control they were.
Oh, that's another level.
Of course it is. And so what got really great about maybe 3 or 4 of these into it, I came back one time because we were never there. I mean, they're so bad at their job, they advertise on like a Facebook group, which is totally monitored.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Secret Service is like, thanks. We know exactly what time you're coming. Like, you got to be better at your job.
Like you're going to be out grilling brats when they show up, right?
Right. Well, this is how bad they are. Is they something came on this Facebook site. They're like, look what we did in front of Wolf's house, and it says like, Wolf is terrible, and it's all written in like crayons. They got the wrong street.
It's the wrong house.
It's the wrong house. It's one street over. I have to go over to my neighbor and apologize for, his streets all jacked up in front of his house because they can't read numbering and streets.
He was probably protesting his own house.
Yeah. So we get 3 or 4 into these, and I come back and I find out that, we've lived in this house for extended period of time, probably 10, 11 years by that point, that my neighbors on the left and the right of me have decided that they too are going to join in to protest my house.
Unreal.
That's just wild.
And it went to a next level because it's like they had, again, all they had to do was knock on my door because we had known each other. We had talked. All they had to do is knock on my door and say, hey, I really want to understand X, Y, and Z. I would have happy to have a conversation with them.
Yeah, you're a reasonable guy, right? It's not like, and they've known you for 10 years.
Yeah.
It's not like you've had a problem before this.
They lost their mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trump
broke them.
Yeah, that's the thing.
He absolutely did. And so I've been, it's been a little pet project of mine ever since to not, I will, I'll never forget. No. Never going to forget that. And so, we'll see how
sounds
their
like an
go.
agony to defeat guy. We'll find out in a minute, but that's what that sounds like to me. I understand that you had a construction project in back that I want you to tell our listeners about because this one killed me when you told me this. This is so good.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it high level. We had a deck put on right after, as COVID set in. We wanted to do more things outside, and the house is a little bit elevated, and so we were standing on the newly built deck, great deck. But we could see into the backyard of one of the neighbors, and I was like, that's not going to work. I really don't want to see them at the moment. So I had the deck builder back over. I said, hey, I need a couple of options to look at. He's like, oh, yeah, I got this for you. Got this. He was a huge fan, by the way, of President Trump's. And he's like, I got you. So he showed me a couple of mock-ups, and I was like, yes, I'll take that one. And so basically it starts from the rail and goes up about 5 feet. And so in total, it's probably about 10 feet, maybe 11 feet high. And it's like it looks like a wall. It's like really tight lattice. What you would see on a deck. It's appropriate for a deck, but it's and so I got this plaque. I ordered it and that I put on the back side of the wall facing the neighbors. It says "Walls work."
That's the best. Absolutely,
it is just so good. Can you imagine the blood pressure in the libs next door looking at that?
It's just so crazy to me is with the left now for against neighbors. Like, these are people who you've known for 10 years. You're like, no, I'm going to go outside and join the mob. I'm not going to have a discussion with someone I've known for 10 years.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, and it's to like, again, what we are a year and a half away from not a word has been spoken.
No, that's just unbelievable.
Again, I don't forget these things.
No, I can't imagine you do. Let me ask you this. You may not have an answer because I'm sure there was a million different episodes like this, but do you have like one or two or three moments that you can think of that were like the toughest day that you had over there?
Oof, there were a lot of tough days.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. The Portland situation was tough. COVID was tough.
Yeah.
Trying to do all these things, just very, very difficult. I'm trying to think of, one bad day. It was usually, the worst days are when you have a law enforcement officer who passes.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of them, right? So DHS is the largest law enforcement agency, not only in the country, but the world.
Is that right?
People don't know that.
Yeah.
Wow. We have about 75,000 law enforcement officers, which is quite a bit, spread across a lot of different agencies. And so with that many, things are going to happen. And so particularly along the border. Border Patrol is a big part of that, and people unfortunately pass away for a variety of different reasons. So that was always very, very difficult. I went to one funeral. It was very, very difficult. It was at the outset of the situation in Portland. It wasn't in Portland. It was in Oakland. This was a contract guard that DHS had contracted with, who I was standing outside. I think it was the courthouse in Oakland, and someone had come by and shot him.
No, I remember that episode.
And then they had protest, and it was kind of like the start of the George Floyd, all the protesting going around. And I went out to the funeral. He wasn't a DHS employee; he was a contract employee. But I thought it was important enough to go out to that funeral, and they were nice enough to allow me to give some remarks. I'd never met the individual, but he played a part in protecting that courthouse in Oakland, and didn't deserve what happened to him. And guess how many people on the left talked about it?
Yeah, no, none.
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero. They had no interest in talking about it. So that was a hard day, but we had a lot of other hard days. 2020 was tough. We had immigration crisis. You had COVID. You had civil unrest. You had Portland. You had the election. I had some crazy folks who worked for me that talked about election security and other folks. So that was interesting as the election got closer. And then when it passed. 2020 was
I got to imagine. But the funny thing is, it seems like you still got a lot in the tank on all of this, right? I mean, you feel like you're sort of still in the fight.
Yeah, so it was interesting. So, I left the administration, shortly before before President Biden was inaugurated. And it was a long 4 years, right? I had missed a lot of my kids' activities.
Yeah.
I think I missed an Easter. I missed a Christmas because something was going down. And, when you're the chief of staff or you're a senior executive at DHS, holidays be damn, like that doesn't factor in.
Yeah.
Like bad things are going down and things are going on and you've got to continue to work. And I don't think a lot of people appreciate that or really understand that. And so after 4 years, my wife's like, "Great, thank you."
Thanks for your service.
Yeah,
Chad.
Let me reintroduce you to your kids.
Right.
They've grown a couple of inches since you've seen them last. And so I was excited about that. I was excited about I'm going to get some semblance of a life back. And I did for a little bit. I stepped out, and then I just started, unfortunately, watching sort of what was going on. And I was like, this is terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is terrible. As much as I would like to take a step back, and that's right. That's usually what conservatives do.
Yeah.
And Republicans do after an administration. Those that serve in the administration, they're like, okay, I'm done. I'm going back. I'm going to go make money somewhere else and have a nice life. Someone else fight the fight. And the left does the exact opposite.
No, they
just stay in it.
Yeah.
And go. And so after a couple of months, I was like, I can't do this. I can't sit back and watch this dumpster fire happen. I think I have a voice. I think I have something to say about this, particularly as it talks about Homeland Security and border security and a stupid disinformation board and everything else. I've got a voice, and so I jumped, back into it. And one of my favorite speeches that I used a lot, right, is Theodore Roosevelt, "Man in the Arena." I had stepped out of the arena, but I felt like I needed to get back in.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to do that. I'm with the America First Policy Institute now. And so we've got about 140 folks, a lot of folks from the administration, taking the policies of the Trump administration. You can think what you want to think about either President Trump or folks that served in his administration, but I think most reasonable Americans say the policies, whether it's economic policy, whether it's security policy, national security, it worked. Mm-hmm. And it was for the betterment of everyday Americans. And so we're focused on those policies, taking them to the next level.
No, it's great. I'm glad you stayed in it because it's important, and I've watched you work your way through cable news and everything else.
Yeah.
You're an incredibly effective voice on it. I hope you keep wailing away because we need it.
Well, we certainly need it.
I got 3 big questions for you. All right?
Shoot, fire away.
Probably know what's coming, but your favorite meal. This is the last meal on Earth, right? The only time that you can sit and plan what your last meal on Earth would be. What would it be?
Oh, my wife's going to hate this. All right, here we go. It's going to be a combination because it's the last meal, right? So it's a combination of Texas brisket.
Yeah, there you go.
And Tex-Mex, washed down with a little cheesecake.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's
a glutton.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And is this so? I've been told by a lot of folks when I visited Austin, you got to get the Tex-Mex, and to me, Their definition of Tex-Mex is basically Mexican food with a can of Cheese Whiz, just like poured on top.
Well, it's not. It's not
what I mean?
exactly that. I'm gonna have to stick up for Tex-Mex. That's not it.
Objection is coming.
Yeah, that's no. That is definitely not. I mean, there is a difference between Mexican food or even Central American food and Tex-Mex. You know, you put an Americanized flavor, but it's not Cheese Whiz.
Are you going to go with a margarita on that, or are you just? I mean, remember, you got to slide in sideways. This is the last
true.
day.
No, I'll go straight for the Tito's.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Nice.
Just a glass of Tito's.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one. I'm not gonna feel good after that, but yeah.
You don't need to. It's
Yeah.
your last one. All right, second question. If you never got into this arena at all, we're talking about public service, public policy, anything in the security side, and you have this great big hole that you can fill. Blue sky answer. What would you do?
That's tough. What would I do, or what would I like to do? Probably what I'd like to do is be some type of professional athlete.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean,
anything in specific?
So I grew up playing tennis. Dabbled in it in college a little bit as well.
Cudlow told us he was going to be a professional tennis player.
There you go. There you go. So I also play a lot of golf, but not nearly at that level. But you know, if I can dream, that's probably what the dream would be. Always enjoyed spending more time outside than inside, and just kind of being active and feeling good about that versus, you know, sitting at a desk.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. And it's a good mentality for a guy in your line of work, too, getting out and actually seeing what's going on.
And there's something, what I found is something very therapeutic about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, cause, you know, many days you'd be frustrated to, it was either you could drink a lot, which I did, or you could, you know, try to do something else that would kind of clear your head. And you always felt better at the end of the day. So I was like, wow, what if you could actually do this all the time? There's probably some stress involved in that, knowing that, you know, if you miss a putt, you probably may not eat, but, you know, whatever.
That's right. But I like it. It's a good answer. All right, final question. This goes to what motivates you, the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat. Thrill of victory, glass half full, optimist, always charging up the hill. Agony of defeat person, every success that they've ever had in life lasts like 2 minutes. Every defeat they've ever had, they wear like a backpack and vowing not to ever repeat that, right? It motivates them to continue driving to try to achieve.
Oh, there's no doubt. Agony of defeat.
Yeah, I mean,
no doubt.
It's like he basically answered this in the interview, right? I mean, it's perfect.
That's not even an option, really. It's just maybe the way I'm wired. You know, growing up playing junior tennis, and you hated losing. Yeah, you hated losing more than anything else. You win, that was nice, but you don't
even remember it.
You don't remember the wins. You remember the losses because the losses suck. And you just carry that over into your professional life, and you're just like, I just don't like to lose.
It's so good, and that was a very easy read, Mr. Wolf.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. So where can everybody check out your work today and keep up with you? Yeah,
so you can go to the America First Policy, AmericaFirstPolicy.com. Good website there. I'm also on Twitter and all that good stuff. We're also suing Twitter and Facebook and all those folks. So
God bless you.
There's that. That's always fun. To get, but yeah, you can check out me or any one of our colleagues. You know, we've got Larry Kudlow at America First Policy Institute. We've got Brooke Rawlings, who ran the Domestic Policy Council. Director Radcliffe. We've got a whole host of folks that served in the Trump administration. And they all said, like I did, they raised their hand and said, I'm still in the arena. Yeah. Because there's still more work to be done, particularly when you see the S show that's going on right now.
No kidding. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can say shit on this show.
Yeah, it's a shit show.
Yeah.
It's a shit show.
Listen, this has been fantastic. Yeah. Keep us updated, both on what you're working on and as developments go on in the Biden administration that you think are absolutely as fucked up as they could get. Come back on, tell us about it, tell us how you'd solve it. Yeah. Hopefully, one day we'll get the opportunity to fix these problems.
I think we will.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, guys.